Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk Leafs, Blackhawks, a few other things in the NHL. If you're a new subscriber, welcome. Hit that like button, comment down below, notifications of course. So, talking Nick Robertson again, I feel like that's been a conversation for so long, but it's a different conversation. It's actually something that I think Brad Treliving is looking into. I've heard some things, just the Leafs talking to the Blackhawks. Originally, I was suggesting that maybe the Leafs go after Tyler Bertuzzi, bring him back, or looking at Connor Murphy, which I might talk about in this video. I probably will. And then you're also talking about some guys on the, I would say, on the fringe for both the Blackhawks and Leafs. Because if you look at the Blackhawks, of course, they're a rebuilding, retooling team. But they have a logjam on the defense group. They have a lot of younger forwards knocking on the door. So they could move some guys out. A little bit of a change of scenery for some guys. And that includes LUKAS REICHEL. So LUKAS REICHEL's been a guy in conversations. I remember earlier in the summer, it was talked about with him getting a change of scenery. And then Elliot Friedman brought it up again recently, saying that the Blackhawks are willing to move the player. Then there was also other conversations about maybe Edmonton because of the German connection with Leon Draisaitl, maybe looking at the Ottawa Senators with Tim Stützle. So there's some of that stuff going on, but I just feel like there's been a few Leaf accounts too that have brought this up. I talked about maybe LUKAS REICHEL being kind of a throw-in because I feel like Nick Robertson's kind of been a throw-in some deals. So maybe you do one for one. Kevin P on Twitter brought it up. So I think maybe REICHEL and Robertson could be a swap here, but I have a bit of a bigger trade. It involves Connor Murphy going to the Toronto Maple Leafs as a shutdown right shot defenseman. Right now, in terms of daily faceoff, they have him on the third pair for the Blackhawks. So I think the Blackhawks are really trying to get Sam Rinzel and Levshunov more activity on that right side of the defense group, specifically in the top four. So they have like 7, 8, 9 defensemen that could play NHL hockey this year. So Connor Murphy, yes, he'd be a great veteran presence, but I think he is expendable at some point for the Blackhawks here. So if Connor Murphy comes over to Toronto, the Leafs probably have to sweeten the Nick Robertson package. Maybe the Blackhawks reunite with David Kampf as a fourth-line center, and then it's a future second-round pick. Something like that. Again, I do know that Connor Murphy's a great leader in that Blackhawks dressing room, but Nick Robertson scored 15 goals last year. I think if he plays in the top 6 for the Blackhawks, he would score 20 to 25 goals easy. LUKAS REICHEL hasn't really shown that goal-scoring ability in North American Pro. So I think if Nick Robertson goes to Chicago, they're getting more value from him than they would get from LUKAS REICHEL at this point. And a second-round pick is a second-round pick. I just think at the end of the day, the Blackhawks have a lot of defensemen knocking on the door. So in the Leafs perspective here, this is deep, right? Like the fact that Calle Jarnkrok is your 13th forward, that fourth line is definitely improved with Dakota Joshua in the pitcher. I love the potential of Michelli playing with Nick Waugh and McMahon. Of course, Michelli on the second or top line could be great too. Playmaking to Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Knies. But Nick Waugh last year scored 15 goals, and Bobby McMahon last year scored 20 goals. Michelli is a pure playmaker. If that guy is on that line, there's a mix of two-way ability here, defensive ability, playmaking ability, and then goal-scoring ability. Like I said, between Nick Waugh and McMahon, they scored 35 goals combined last year. So Michelli would definitely have guys that can put in the back of the net, and then you have your really solid top 6 with a guy like REICHEL getting that opportunity. If the Leafs were not to trade Nick Robertson, there is still a legit opportunity with the structure I'm showing you on the screen right now that Nick Robertson can be in the top 6. If Michelli finds himself on that third line, Robertson has a real opportunity to play in the top 6 with Domi and Robertson, I would say, next to Matthews and Knies, and the other one next to Tavares and Nylander. I think that's a legit opportunity, and I just want to give a shout. I always want to give a shout to people trying to grow their page. Shout out to Alexander. He kind of talks about, I just read his article quickly. He just talks about how Robertson's in a similar situation as Timothy Liljegren. He easily could be traded, but if Nick Robertson shows well in camp, and the fact that there's an empty spot on that right wing, Nick Robertson might find himself success on that right side with his left-hand shot in the middle of the ice. I always go back to that overtime winner against the Dallas Stars when Matthews and Robertson were on that odd man rush, and Matthews gave it to Robertson for that one-timer with Robertson on the right side. Like that opportunity there, it was kind of like, okay, Robertson could find himself on that line with Matthews and Knies, an all-American top line, and Matthew Knies can be the guy that goes after the puck. Matthews and Robertson can be two options with a legit shot. You could argue that Robertson has one of the best shots on this team. So all of that considering like the fact that the Leafs could use Robertson in the top 6 with the goal scoring, but they also could sell it to another team to see that value and that potential. And the Leafs, I think in that scenario, the trade I showed, they I would say, low risk with LUKAS REICHEL. Maybe he shows well, but also the Connor Murphy aspect where it's just a shutdown guy on the right side who could play next to Morgan Riley or play next to OEL, and then maybe Carlo finds himself next to OEL. But with the Blackhawks lines right now, maybe the Leafs could go after Tyler Bertuzzi. But what I'm really looking at here is there's an opportunity where you could slide down Bertuzzi into the third line, slide down Foligno or Mikheyev to the fourth line, and the Blackhawks all of a sudden have really good depth. And I think there's a scenario where you could put Robertson next to either Bedard or Nazar, and he could do really well. Like, I would see an opportunity where Bertuzzi slides down, and you put Robertson next to Nazar and Teravainen. I think Robertson would strive in an opportunity like that, get him power play time. And then I already showed the Leaf lines, but little preview on the Golden Knights for the next one. But yeah, so I think that's the conversation for Toronto. Do they trade Robertson? Is it for a guy that also needs to change the scenery like a LUKAS REICHEL, or is it for a defensive upgrade? Because the Leafs have a lot of defensive depth right now. I think in a scenario they could trade Matt Benning, get a guy that's more legit top four guy or can play a top four role. And then they have Henry Thrun, Simone Benoit, they have Phil Myers, they have guys knocking on the door. So give me your thoughts, guys, if you think the Leafs and Blackhawks could be trade partners. I think Brad Treliving is talking to Chicago. I've heard some stuff, but I've also just seen the fit with a few different players on each side. So let me know your thoughts. Subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.